Well, we've talked about the fundamentals. I've helped you to get that memory work down, feeling that golf swing as you make it back and through, sending that ball out towards the target. But we've got to take that out to the golf course now. And there's another thing we've got to deal with when we get on the course, and that's just how to mentally approach the game. And joining me is a guy that's going to really help us to understand that side of the game, Dr. David Cook. He's the Director of Sports Psychology at the University of Kansas. And he works with outstanding athletes in all sports, from baseball to football. He's even worked with members of the Olympic track team. But who David really likes to work with are the golfers, the amateurs, and also members of the PGA Tour and the Senior Tour. In fact, he's had some winners on both tours. Well, I hear this all the time, David. A person will come out and he'll say, well, I practice, you know, and I feel real good, and then I get out on the golf course. If I could just play like I practice, if I just had the confidence, you know, that on that practice tee when I get out on the course. So how can we address them with that? What can we tell them?
Confidence is one of those variables that we know is very related to performance. We know that confidence is a must when a golfer walks onto the tee box. He must believe that he's going to have a good round. And when I ask golfers, where does confidence come from, they typically tell me things like this. Well, you know, I'm coming off a good round. I had a good round yesterday. Somebody said something nice to me on the range. The weather, I like the weather. The conditions are nice. I like the layout of the course. It plays into my style of play. My home life and my business life, everything is going well, you know, and they go out and they say, I'm confident today I can really accomplish what I'm going to do today because of all of those external factors. And so the next question I ask them then is, how much control do you have over confidence?
You don't have hardly any.
If they answer the first question the way that we just discussed, then they don't have any control over it. So we talk about, yes, confidence is important to performance, therefore you need to be able to establish some control from the inside. And where does that come from? And there's basically 4 areas that we talk about establishing confidence that isn't based on external factors. It's based on coming from the inside.
Things that you can control.
Exactly. The first is believing in your method. You're out on the practice range and you practice your method and your swing and you're working on honing your abilities, and you have to be able to take that to the first tee and then believe in yourself. Instead of getting out there and seeing your partner swinging in a different fashion or manner and say, well, I need to swing like that, or I need to do that, or I need to do this, and be intimidated. Exactly. So you need to take who you are and what you are on the golf course. Believe in your method. That's the first thing. The second thing is positive self-talk. Self-talk is a way that our mind communicates to our muscles. Our muscles do not have brains of their own. It's hooked to your mind. Golf is a voluntary muscle activity, meaning that it's controlled by thoughts. Self-talk is a way that our human system is set up so that we communicate. And there's 2 ways. We communicate through words and we communicate through images.
And we talked a lot about those, building images and good swing feelings and seeing it and being able to swing.
The teaching aids, the methods that you've talked about, help people have a picture so that they, in their mind, they can use those images then to communicate to the muscles. Self-talk is so important. It's been said that the most intimate and influential messages that you'll ever receive in your life, or me, come from what we say to ourselves, not from what others say to us. And it's therefore very important to be our own best friend out on the golf course.
Boy,
if we're not our own best friend,
because it's easy to sure get down on yourself.
Exactly. If we're not our own best friend, we're in trouble out there, because it's you against the others. It's you against the golf course. And we're going to take that idea of being your own best friend, and we're going to go out there in the fairway in a little bit and talk about how do you be your own best friend and what does that mean. The third area is visualizing, is beginning to be able to picture success rather than failure. And it's a choice. Each of these are choices. You know, everything that I talk about in sports psychology and teach is based on the principle of choosing, making good decisions, making choices. Gary Player said, each morning I have a choice. I simply choose to be positive. I really like what he said. You have a choice when you wake up. So we're talking about choices here. Believe in your method, positive self-talk, and visualizing. The fourth element is simply to trust yourself, to believe in your method, to believe in your ability to make the shot happen.
How do we get into that where it's just an automatic move and we can get the ball into play?
We need to make sure that our mind is focused, because the body functions from thoughts that come from our brain.
Good. Well, let me see how you're going to get into that, Dave.
Okay, let's just take a look at this hole and talk about what we would do in this particular instance. If we look down the fairway, the first thing we see is that trap, we see the swamp on the right, we see the out of bounds and the trees on the left, and we begin to see a real narrow landing area. Typically people get caught up in that, and what we need to do is we need to be able to undo what the architect has done and get our mind thinking of good things. So the first word I like to use in the routine or the checklist is to simply observe or scan or look, and that tells us then to take it all in. We're just like a computer. A computer is taking information in. So as I look down there, I see the weather, the wind, I see the trees, I see the trap, and I see the fairway. And it's all out there to help guide me to my target.
To bring you down to that target down the
Exactly.
fairway.
When we look out there, a lot of times what we see are a bunch of hazards, and those hazards then bring anxiety and fear and doubt. But we need to look at those hazards as guides to a target. They're inanimate objects that are there but to guide us around the golf course. It's a different way of looking at the game.
Sure is.
And so as we look out there, we begin to see very quickly that that sand trap is not going to come into play for us because it's only 120 yards off the tee box. And our landing area is way beyond that. But our eyes are drawn to it.
Right.
So the first thing is to observe. The second thing is to do something with the information that we get from observing. We want to develop a strategy. We want to have a plan. What am I going to do? There's three aspects to the strategy. One is target. See, we begin to focus in. We're going from a broad perspective to a narrow perspective. We want to funnel our thinking. So we start broadly observing. The second thing is strategy, developing a strategy. Where's my target? It's the first question to answer. The second is what kind of shot am I going to hit? And the third question is what club am I going to hit? Those are the three questions that have to be answered in golf. Strategy. What's my target? What club am I going to hit, and what kind of shot am I going to hit to that? So I look down there and we see that pine tree way off in the distance. That's the middle of the fairway, and that's the middle of the landing area.
So that's going to kind of be your target to
That'll be our
focus in on,
target.
so you're narrowing it on down to that.
Now we're into the target. We're not thinking of the obstacles and the challenges anymore. We're thinking of the target. And now we're ready, Wally, for the part of the golf game that I call shot making. Shot making is the most important aspect of the game. And what we can do with shot making is we take the driving range and we move it right over here to the tee box now, and we become a golfer that is trying to hit a ball from point A to point B. The same thing you do on the driving range. And now we've eliminated all of the distractors because we now are focused on the target.
Because the whole purpose of even practicing is to get yourself in a position to come out so that when you swing the golf club, it's automatic and you can play the game and you're not practicing on the course.
Exactly. You get into shot making, make the shot happen. There's three elements. There's three elements to shot making, and this is the most important thing that we'll say on this tape. These three elements are what any golfer, whether they're a beginner or whether they're intermediate or whether they're a professional golfer can use. I've used these with guys on the senior tour and the regular tour and have had them have victories using these things.
Oh, that's great.
The three elements are, now we're into shot making again, and remember, is to see it, to picture it, to visualize it, to paint the shot, to become a Picasso. The second element is to feel the swing that's needed to be made to make that picture happen. What is the shot that you hit? If you slice the ball, if you fade the ball, paint a picture, paint a feel to it. Don't try to do something against your feel that day, but try to feel into your shot. So you basically are feeling it. Your teaching aids help people to feel the swing. That's when they can use those images of teaching aid in the feeling aspect. And the last part is simply to trust. When you say the word trust, the club goes back. What you're trying to do in that stage is to allow yourself to completely commit to a shot. And it's simply a switch. See it, feel it, trust it.
So the last thing at the bottom of the funnel is the trust factor. You've started out there broad, you've just looked at it and scanned it, you've zeroed in on the target, then you've felt the feelings, you've got confidence because you've done it on the practice tee and you know you can do it. But then the trust is at the bottom of the funnel.
Exactly. When we think back to confidence, positive self-talk, positive imagery, and trust were all important there. Those are all in the checklist or the mental routine that we've established here. So it's very important. It's part of confidence and it's part of concentration. Let me give you an example of what the routine looks like, and I'll take you through a shot.
All right.
First of all, I want to start out by showing you the reverse of the funneling. effect that we're
You
trying
mean
to
the way
get.
it happens for the average guy that's coming out.
The typical routine would look something like this. You look down the fairway and you see the bunker and you see the out of bounds and you see that, and your eyes begin to narrow and focus on those things. And they begin to say, I've got to hit it away from that, and I've got to hit it away from that. And then they begin to think of all the things that can happen if they actually hit it. And they begin to have more and more thoughts, and then as they come up into the shot, they think of their swing thoughts that they have to have, the million swing thoughts they have to not hit it in the trouble.
Yeah.
And so what you have is a person that's actually going from narrow to broad, and they never get into shot making. Yeah. They're still making decisions over the ball, and they're also thinking about where not to hit it instead of where to hit it.
So when that comes into his mind, like, don't hit it in the swamp to the right. So what happens with that? You know, what do they do with that thought?
When you visualize a shot to a good point, good learning takes place. Now, when you are saying, don't hit a shot out of bounds or out to the right in the swamp, bad learning is taking place because you're sending an image to your system whether you know it or not. You can't block things out around the golf course. What you need to be able to do is replace them with the right shot. You can't be blocking out. So if I step up here and I say, don't hit it right like I did yesterday, don't hit it right like I did last week, basically my system is seeing that shot and feeling that shot, and I'm putting myself in position to hit that shot. My muscles are feeling that shot when they shouldn't be. So instead of saying not, we should say do. Hit towards this. Be a golfer that's not avoiding trouble, but one that's pursuing a target. So you get that reverse funneling effect.
So he gets broader thinking about all the problems.
Exactly. You never really get into shot making, which is the game of golf. So let me show you how the funnel works the other way. We talked about it a minute ago. Let me show you what it looks like. It doesn't take very long. As I stand here, I look and I observe and I figure where the wind's coming from and I see the obstacles. Again, they're my guides, aren't they? And they guide me right to that tree down there at the end of the fairway. I see that tree, that's going to be my target. That's my strategy phase. I say the word strategy, I've got a tree, I've also got a club that I'm going to hit. On this particular hole, I'm going to pull a driver out because I know that beyond that sand trap, there's a huge
plenty of room.
Amount of fairway down there. A good thing for an amateur and a player, and players from all levels, is to be able to look at the golf course backwards and undo what the architect's done. So as you get down the fairway, you'll find out the landing area is much larger than it looks.
We're going to do that in a few minutes. We'll
which gives you confidence. Instead of seeing the trouble, I know there's a landing area down there. So now I've got my club, I know the type of shot, I'm just going to hit a normal shot, and now I'm ready for shot making. And the shot making doesn't take much time. It starts back here with an anchor, something that begins the shot making routine. The see it, feel it, trust it is your routine, 3 simple words, but you anchor it so that every time on the golf course before a shot, you do the same thing. My anchor today, and for the last few years, has been to undo my glove and simply to tighten it. That's just a symbol. It's an anchor that gets me into the shot. So as I do that, now I'm into shot making, and I begin to picture the shot here. I develop an intermediate target, and I walk up. And I go through the memory work that you've talked about on the other tapes. You put your club face down, and then you align your body to it. That's my mechanical checklist. Now my mental checklist begins. See it? I'm painting the picture. I feel like Picasso. I feel the swing, and if I want to put some of the feels from the training aids in, I feel it right here.
Just feel it.
And then when I say the word trust, the club starts back. And I'm going to hit the shot trusting and believing that a good shot's going to take place. I'm going to give myself the greatest probability of allowing that shot to take place.
You really put yourself in a position to score, finally, and to trust your swing.
Exactly. So let me show you exactly what this looks like. It doesn't take much time at all. You stand back here, you begin to see the shot, you get your intermediate target, you step up, and now you're into the 3 words. My memory work is done. See it, feel it, trust it.
Beautiful shot. That's right on the tree. Well, let's go down and find it and look back and see how this architect's tried to trick us on this course. We're down in the fairway. Now what's the process, Dave?
Well, let's talk about undoing what the architect has done from the tee box. The first thing to do, now that you're in the fairway down here, for, let's say for tomorrow's round, is to take a look back at the tee box. And what do you see? You don't see the traps anymore. The fairway is much wider. In fact, if you look around, here's where all the divots are, so this must be the landing area. The trap is up there 120 yards from where we're standing, but on the tee box it looked like an intimidating foe. And then also, we've stepped this off, and this fairway here is 35 yards wide, but from the tee box, you could only see about 15 yards of it. So this is an example of how the architect has deceived us and developed an illusion. So the first thing to do is to prepare for tomorrow by looking back and seeing and undoing all that. So we really have a lot of room for success here. And we're down here now in the landing area, and we've pulled off the shot.
Now what if someone really gets it going bad? Let's say they're slicing, they've got the slice, they're out in the trees, they're in the woods, and they go, boy, you know, I can't stop it. I've got this roller coaster going and I can't get off. How do you get out of that feeling?
That's a tough feeling to have, and anybody who's played golf has been there and probably will be there. Really, golf, it has to be played one shot at a time. And when somebody is having the wheels come off or the snowball effect, it's that probably they're not playing one shot at a time. Their mind is back at the shot before, a few shots before that, or the pressure that's coming up, and it begins to snowball because their focus is not on the see it, feel it, trust it, and it's not funneling correctly. It's the reverse funnel where they see trouble and have too many swing
So
thoughts.
they're seeing those bad shots when they get up on the tee, and then they just don't have a way to take care of them.
Exactly. And they haven't developed a feel because they hadn't seen a good shot. And there's three reasons for that. We call these the errors of trust. They haven't really gotten into trusting their swing. Even if you do have a slice or fade going that day, you can play that shot if you trust it. Dr. Bill Moore developed what he calls the errors of trust. The errors of trust, which keep us from trusting, would be pressing, meaning that you have to hit this shot. It's more important than it really is. Over-aiming, meaning that you're so stuck into the line and you're so stuck into the target that you never do feel the shot, which is the second word. And the third one would be that you begin to jam. That means you have too many thoughts.
A lot of thoughts running through your mind.
Too many thoughts. And so you don't get to trust, and people that are having the wheels come off aren't really trusting because they're either pressing, over-aiming, or they're jamming, or one of the three.
They don't get to the bottom of the triangle, they stay wide,
Exactly.
and they never get down there.
That's different from see it, feel it, and trust it.
Well, what happens if a guy, and people always ask me, well, Wally, you know, I hit a great drive and my ball, say, ends up right in a divot. Now the anxiety comes up and you get up there and you go, oh man, give me a break. And how do you deal with anxiety? I mean, frustration.
This would be a frustrating situation. You've hit the ball down here in the middle of the fairway. You know this is the landing area. Everything's great because you see the divots around here. But your ball is not in a fixed divot, it's in an unfixed divot. What an unfortunate situation to be in. And most people begin to say, why me? You know, why can't something good happen to me? Everything bad always happens to me. And you begin to create this image of the courses against you. And what we have to do is take the emotion out of that. And I call this looking at it from the 2% rule. There's 2% of the things on the golf course, 2% of happenings and situations that you have no control over whatsoever. And you can't control luck, the bounce of the ball if it hits a sprinkler head, or if somebody doesn't replace a divot and it goes in there. So you have to deal with that. Just call it 2%, and you got to understand that everybody has to deal with that. So you come up here, you let your emotion out by saying, that's one of the 2% rule. I couldn't control that, but I can make the best shot I can from this situation. And so that means going through your routine, setting yourself up for success, making sure you see it, feel it, trust it. Let me give you an example of that. We'll have to change clubs here for this shot, but in this particular instance, let's take a look down the fairway and talk about that before I hit the shot. Now, as you get closer to the green, typically the pressure increases, and then when you get on the green, there's more pressure there. The elements get more, they cost more. We seem to think they cost more. And here we look at what the architect's done again.
Yeah, he's deceived us.
He has. He's got the traps right here in front of us that really aren't into play, but they look like they are. There's a trap right of the green, the swamp's still there, the trees are on the left, and it looks like there's really not much of a shot. Therefore, what we need to do is go through our routine and funnel down correctly. So we take the club, we step back here, and we begin to picture the shot. We see the target, you know, we observe everything. We've got a target now. We pick the club, and we know the kind of shot we're going to hit. But there's a definite target down there. So now I step in here, I've got my intermediate target out here, and now I'm really into shot making. See, shot making, one shot at a time. We did it up there, we'll do it here, we'll do it at the green. Shot making. So I'm aggressively hitting at a target. It doesn't happen to be on the green. So I'm going through my routine here. See it, feel it, trust it.
Oh, that's going to come right down. Good shot.
Thank you. Now, That was a trouble shot. Now this is, I got a perfect lie, and this is in the go zone. So again, what I want to do is do exactly what I just did, but I have a different target now. I want the flag to be my target. And so at this point, we're going to do the same thing. Go through our routine, see it, feel it, and trust it. If you'll notice, one thing that I haven't mentioned, if you notice during my routine, I never get static. You never want to start golf from a static position because it's very difficult to feel it. So I'm constantly feeling it. And another thing that you emphasize is that when you're back here taking a look, go ahead and use a little feel motion if you want to do that.
We talk about that a lot.
A lot of players can do that from
Feel
right
that
back
swing.
here. So let's look at that. Step back here, the target, the wind's coming from this direction, the trees are over there, so my target will be the flag, and the ball ought to land a little bit right of the flag. And I'm back here and I want to feel this shot, you know, so I can go through the motion like you're talking about. Now as I step in, I line my club face and do the memory work. Then we simply say, see it, feel the swing, and trust.
Oh,
hit the shot.
Get in the hole, ball. Great shot. Boy, that's about 20 feet from the hole. Let's go on up and take a look,
Okay.
Dave. Dave, we're finally on the short grass. And this is where the tension really starts building. You know, the hole's close to us. We know that's going to produce our score. Over 40% of all of our scores coming up here, getting the ball in the hole. And the tension gets enormous. I mean, those knuckles get white.
Right.
In fact, the tension gets so tough that we even have a term for it when people can't make the putt, even get it back or through. It's called the yips. So talk a little bit about relieving that tension and how to approach putting from a mental side.
Putting is so important. We have to have a mental game plan when we get to the green. We've taken the deception and the illusion out of the game because there's not any in the green anymore. It's just right there. You got to get the ball in the hole. And people know that if that ball goes in the hole, it's going to be one less stroke than if it doesn't go in the hole. And so we begin to add up the pressure and it begins to mount. And putting is that part of the game where you use the fine muscle movement. You know, it's a fine muscle movement activity, and in those activities, that's where stress rears its head the most. Gross motor activities like driving the ball, you can carry more tension, but when you get on the green, that's when you have to be under control. And there's several things that we can do. One thing we can do here, and you can also use it in the fairway, is as your anchor. We talked about opening and closing the glove as an anchor. In putting, a good anchor is to take a deep breath. Dr. Koop talks about it as the cleansing breath. And we know that that's the easiest way for an athlete, even and especially a golfer, to take a deep breath to get the relaxation response started, because relaxation starts from the chest and moves out down the arms and down through the rest of the body.
You really see that in basketball, don't
Exactly.
you? You teach that to your basketball players with the free throw. You hear them. Is that what you're talking about?
Take a deep breath. You'll see that happening deep down into the diaphragm. So what we're trying to do is not get totally relaxed, but just get composed. Composed is a good word. How do you get composed? You take a deep breath and you start there. It's imperative that you go through your routine here. You're setting your mind up to make the putt. Putting, however, is not a precise, perfect, repeatable activity. It's very difficult to make a putt go the same place each time. In fact, why don't we pick up this
little track here.
This track here and use this as an illustration to show.
Okay, I'll hold it nice and steady.
How imperfect a green can really be. We'll start each of these balls in the same place and see where they end up.
Well, none of them touch.
That's a good illustration that if you're a perfectionist and you come to the green expecting that you can make every putt as far as forcing it in the hole, trying so hard that you will it in the hole, that you're going to be disappointed many times because it's such an imperfect science.
You can hit a good putt and it may not go in.
Exactly. The key is hitting a good putt. Jack Nicklaus has been attributed to saying this, that he didn't miss the putt, it just didn't go in.
That's right.
He did miss the
Good way
putt,
to
just
look
didn't
at
go
it.
in. And that's such a strong way of thinking about putting. So again, the only thing that we can control on the green, as this illustrates, is giving ourselves the best opportunity to make the putt. And then allow what happens to happen. Hit it, and if it doesn't go in, say, I made it, just didn't go in. I mean, that's a great, great quote from Nicklaus. So let me talk about how we would do this. We've got about an 8-footer downhill here. And we want to do just like we did in the fairway. We want to be very consistent through our routine all the way through the round, through the entire day of golf. We'd step back here, take a cleansing breath, kind of brings us back to our point, our base, getting us established in a relaxed fashion, composed. Picture the putt, see where the break is, step up to it, and use a practice stroke to develop that feel you're talking about. Get a good feel for what you're trying to have happen right here. And then as you step in, align your club face to the point that you want to have as your target. See it, feel it in your fingers, and then trust it. Good stroke.
It seems awful easy just to have some simple points. Why don't you go back and just give us a recap of what you've taught us from the tee to the fairway to the green?
It's imperative when you come on the golf course that you bring your bag of psychological tools. We talked about confidence. Confidence is enhanced by believing in your method, by positive self-talk, by visualization, and by trust, which are all choices, you know, which is the basis. Coming out here making good choices of how to react, how to behave, and how to handle situations. The second thing we talked about was concentration, and we really honed in on the routine, having a mental checklist, just as a pilot does. And that follows your setup routine, your mechanical routine, which you call your memory work. And you put those together, and then you step up and you have a focus, and it funnels from broad to narrow, and it's the correct way to perform. And you've gotten rid of all of the extraneous variables, all of the obstacles, and all of the challenges that are out there trying to pull your attention by simply focusing and having a plan. It's like you want to go to the golf course, you never want to leave it at home. You want to take that to the course with you. You want to make sure you never hit a shot without going through your mental routine. And the other thing you want to do is play to your strengths. And you want to undo what the architect has done out there. You want to make sure that you imagine and see your target and you play to your strengths. And you go out there and you play golf from point A to point B. You keep it simple, Wally.
David, we sure appreciate you being with us on this section, and I hope that you learned something, and you've got some good mental things that you can put into your bag and take to the course. So go on out and have a lot of fun when you play.